tonight's presentation hosted by the City and County of Denver. My name is Kaylee Showers. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm going to be your moderator tonight as we talk about the South Central Community Transportation Networks project. On the next slide, we do have live Spanish interpretation available for tonight's discussion. Before I guide you through the steps to access interpretation in English, I'd like to invite Nora to welcome our Spanish speakers. Nora.
Thank you, Kaylee. Buenas tardes y bienvenidos a la reunión de Red de Transporte Comunitario del Sur Centro. Esta reunión está ofrecida por la Ciudad y Condado de Denver y como es usual en este tipo de reuniones, tenemos interpretación al español disponible. Para aquellos que quisieran usar la interpretación, tenemos un par de instrucciones para ustedes. La primera, por favor, pulsen el icono del globo que está en la parte inferior de la pantalla y ustedes pueden seleccionar ahí su idioma de preferencia. Van a seleccionar el español y van a poder escuchar la interpretación que vamos a suministrarles. Gracias y bienvenidos. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Nora. For those of you connecting on a smart device, you can access the Spanish room now by clicking on the globe icon on the bottom right of your screen and selecting the Spanish option. I'll give you a moment to do so. Wonderful. Now let's introduce your leads for tonight's presentation. I am joined by a number of transportation experts, including Walter Scheib, David Pulsifer, both from the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. We also have several team members on our project team with us tonight who will assist in answering your questions during our Q&A breaks. Welcome, team. We want to take care of a few housekeeping details before we get started. Please click on the Q&A button on the bottom of your toolbar of your screen to type in your questions to the project team. We will be monitoring the Q&A box to forward questions to the project team throughout the evening, and our goal is to try to answer as many of your questions as possible during our time together. You can begin now by typing in your questions and comments. We'd like to make this a safe place for everyone to ask questions and share their thoughts. Please remember to be kind and respectful of others and kindly share your thoughts and questions. If you're joining us by phone this evening, we have a dedicated project line that we monitor where you can leave us a message following the meeting and you can provide us with your questions and comments that way. That phone number is 303-223-6575. Again, if you're joining by phone and you'd like to leave a question or comment following the meeting, you can call us at 303-223-6575. Finally, so we can end promptly at 6:30, we're going to be sticking closely to the agenda and time frame. With that, let's take a quick look at this agenda in front of you. First up, we'll be giving you an overview of the Community Transportation Network, program milestones, and the complete picture of project goals, including an update on bike miles added to the network over the last year. We'll move on to show you how your feedback has been incorporated into our recommendations at every step of the way. Next, you'll hear from design and transportation experts who will be presenting information on several projects that are currently at 60% design. Then you'll hear about the Neighborhood Transportation Management Program and how Dottie is incorporating your feedback into additional multimodal improvements throughout the city. We'd also like to show you how to use a tool that we will be using to collect your feedback. Before we leave, we'll share information on how you can stay engaged and utilize that tool and provide your feedback in additional avenues. As I mentioned earlier, after each agenda item, we'll be pausing to answer your questions. So please feel free to start adding those questions in now so we can get to all of them. Now I'm going to pass things over to the project team to get us started and provide you with an overview on the Community Transportation Network process.
Thanks, Kaylee. Next slide, please. Well, thanks everyone. We're really glad that you guys came out tonight. We're grateful and appreciative of your time, and we hope that you find it informational and valuable as we share our progress on the Community Transportation Networks and Neighborhood Transportation Management Plan. So with relation to the Community Transportation Network goals, we have some overarching measures that we're driving towards that this effort is trying to achieve. Vision Zero. which is the movement that Denver is taking to pursue no traffic fatalities or serious injuries by the year of 2030. We want these networks to be multimodal. So if you walk, bike, take transit, scooter, bike share, car share, or drive, that everyone has a good, safe, convenient, and comfortable option. And if you do choose to bike, we want them to be a high comfort bike facility. So not just something that you might see your neighbor riding on who rides on all the streets, but something for normal people like yourself. That's what we call a high comfort bikeway, protected bike lane or neighborhood bikeway, which we'll get into a little bit later. We also want to give people more options. We know that so many people have moved to Denver in the last couple of years, and people are bringing their cars with them. And when we get more cars on the road, and it creates traffic and congestion. And we want to give people viable options to not have to take their car. And we know that if we do that, we can be more efficient. We can move more people. We can achieve our safety goals, our mobility goals, and our environmental goals. Next slide, please. So the foundation of the community transportation network is looking at subsets or miniature regions of the city. In the past, the city has done project planning that resulted in somewhat of a patchwork of networks. So you would have a bike lane or a sidewalk network that didn't connect or would just abruptly stop. And the idea with our community transportation networks is we're taking a network perspective, looking at all of the facilities in these different regions, and then planning and designing and constructing them simultaneously so that we're immediately improving people's connectivity and transportation options, getting people to where they want to go in their neighborhood. Next slide, please. So in terms of our progress, one of our big goals that Mayor Hancock committed us to was building 125 miles of bikeways in 5 years. And we're more than halfway through that, and we should be hitting our goal sometime next year. And we've built a lot of bikeways, and you can see that as we install more of these lines will be connected to each other, and that people will be able to have seamless connections from moving from their neighborhood to throughout the city.
All right, thanks, David. So just a quick plug for another citywide transportation planning initiative that's currently happening. It's called Denver Moves Everyone 2050. So Dottie is leading this citywide plan to identify transportation solutions that will make it easier to get where we want to go. This is a 2-year process, which has been going on for a little while now and will be ending in November of 2022. And it'll prioritize equitable and safe solutions for Denverites and seek to improve the movement of goods and services, ensuring you have access to everything you need. If you want to further get involved and shape transportation investments like these bike facilities that we're talking about tonight as part of South Central CTN, you can get involved in Denver Moves Everyone to help shape the city's transportation investments and future projects. The best way to do that is by going to denvermoveseveryone.com. There you can provide input on the project and also hear updates about exciting engagement opportunities that are coming up throughout the summer and then into the fall as well. So again, that's denvermoveseveryone.com. Thank you. Next slide.
All right, thank you, David and Walter, very much for those updates and the overview of the Community Transportation Network. At this time, we'll be happy to take any questions from the audience. Again, there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen that you can use to enter your questions for the group. At this time, David, maybe you could answer a couple of questions that have come in. First, what happens after 2023 and the 125 miles are concluded?
Well, then we all just sit back and relax and enjoy the, no, of course not. So we will start working on additional areas of the city with the recent passing of the bond. We received additional funding to do two subsequent community transportation networks. We'll be looking at West Denver and then also North Denver in the Globeville, Elyria, Swansea area. So we'll be taking similar approaches to the one we're taking here and continue on that work until we've hit all parts of the city. And I do want to say that just because we're focusing on these networks doesn't mean we're not also doing tons of other stuff in all parts of the city. But this is how we're organizing at least this effort. There's lots of efforts that increase mobility and transportation safety throughout the city.
Thank you. That actually answers the next question, which is when will DADI expand into other regions of Denver? So it definitely sounds
There
like
you
it's
go.
on the horizon. Yeah.
Yep.
Next question. So what are the biggest priority of DADI's bike planning team currently? And have these shifted at all since the launch of CPN back in 2019?
That's a really great question. So I would say we kind of have two simultaneous priorities. One is, or maybe three. One is, doing the 125 miles. That's our goal. We're also working on getting all of Denver within a quarter of a mile of a high comfort bike facility. So, the type of facility that we would say changes behavior, that gets someone to ride a bike who isn't currently riding a bike. So for us, that looks like a trail, a protected bike lane, or a neighborhood bikeway. And a neighborhood bikeway is a local street, typically residential in nature, that has been traffic calmed, diverted, or has other physical features that discourage cut through traffic and that make it very low volume and low speed, so that your children would feel safe playing in the street and that you would feel comfortable riding with your family in a very calm environment. So our goal is to get everyone within a quarter mile of one of those high comfort facilities to build 125 miles. And then our other goal with relation to the network is just actually increase the amount of biking in Denver. And we want, right now, only 2% of all trips in Denver are taken by bike, and we'd like to get that up to 7.5% of all trips taken by bike. So those are some of the big kind of targets we steer towards when we're doing our bike network.
Good, thank you. And thank you to Ian, who has submitted a question for the group. He asks, what percentage of 125 miles of bikeways are actual separated bike lanes? He notes that many of us don't have much faith in the neighborhood bikeways due to lack of car diverters that eliminate through traffic.
Yeah, we'd have to get back to you on, what percent. I don't know it off the top of my head. I could, we could look that up and certainly follow up with you in terms of what percent of our network is a high comfort. And I totally get it. The neighborhood bikeway is a relatively new concept, and in their, first iterations, I wouldn't say they've met all of our goals. They're definitely a step in the right direction. If you've been on Bayard, that's definitely a step towards where we're going with a lot of consistent traffic calming, narrowed crossings and traffic diversion and things like that. But just ask that you keep faith with us and let us show you, what our intent is. Our intent is for them to be high comfort facilities that everyone feels safe on, but understand that they're relatively new for the city. So we're learning a lot as we implement.
Eddie, are you all ready?
Thank you. And thank you to Jack, another question from the audience. Walter, maybe you could address this one. Yeah, he asks, how will the Denver Moves Everyone 2050 survey results be used?
Sure, that's a great question. And a big part of Denver Moves Everyone is actually prioritizing our future capital investment projects. So a lot of that feedback is identifying priorities of where Denver's residents actually want to be spending and investing that money in terms of improving the city's infrastructure and ensuring that there's safe and equitable ways to get around the city. So a lot of it has to do with prioritizing future financial expenditures.
Thank you. Next question comes from John. John asks, why does DADI keep calling bikeways high comfort when bicyclists keep telling you they're not? Too much shared traffic and too many closed passes. Would anyone like to address that?
Sure. Yeah. I would say, this is like a semantic, difference. And what we are, the intent of building high comfort networks is so that everyone feels comfortable and understand that we have a ways to go before people get to that point. But our intent is to, really create that 8 to 80 network where everyone between 8 and 80 feels comfortable. We know that there are a lot of ways to do that. Obviously, we want to, increase access to trails, build better protected bike lanes, and build neighborhood bikeways that meet our intent with very low traffic volumes and speeds so that they are a comfortable place to ride.
Good, thank you. We have time for one more question in this session. There are a few others in the box. I'll just note that some of our experts will be getting to those, either typing the answers to you, or we'll have a follow-up here after, toward the end of the event. Final question asks, are there plans to improve existing neighborhood bikeways? They currently do not do a good job of traffic diversion or protecting cyclists. So are there plans to improve existing neighborhood bikeways?
So right now, oh, sorry, so Welder, I would say right now we really only have like West 35th and Bayard to a certain extent, that in terms of like real, established neighborhood bikeways, and West 35th was our first one ever. So I would say they are constantly under evaluation, and we are committed to getting them to where they need to be. But it's not like an overnight fix, and it's not something that you just can quickly address. We need to do data research. We need to count volumes and do all the things, and then come up with the right treatments that get us to those volumes and speeds. Sorry to cut you off, Walter. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's a continual process, and as we've installed these first facilities, it's been really helpful to learn what works in terms of designs and what's not as effective as we're aiming for in terms of reducing vehicle speeds and volumes. And it's a process that will continue to improve over time as we learn and gather more data on what works and what doesn't.
Great, thank you. And we'll move forward now just to keep time. We are actually going to go back to Walter for the South Central project overview.
Thanks. So just as a reminder, this is South Central CTN. It's 12 connected neighborhoods that will have almost 40 miles of planned bike facilities that will be installed in the coming years. Current bike routes to this area do not really create a true network. So there's both a lack of north-south and east-west connectivity. So we're really excited to rapidly build out the bike network across these neighborhoods here in the coming years. So on the next slide, this is just a quick refresher on the plan, design, and build process. South Central CTN has incorporated community feedback throughout the process since we started in early 2020. Our team has previously completed a variety of stakeholder meetings and multiple rounds of community meetings, along with weekly office hour availability throughout this time. We've also gathered public feedback during the concept development phase through community surveys, and during the design phase through the Conveyo interactive mapping tool, which we'll be discussing a little bit more again tonight. So on the next slide, for looking at projects that are still currently in design, I just want to provide a quick update on projects that have final designs and are going to construction. All projects on this list are currently going through the construction bid process this spring. And what that means is the installation for these projects will begin later this year in 2022 and then continue into 2023. These projects were part of the first round of public engagement between spring 2020 and spring of 2021. Next slide. So this is phase 2 projects. This is a list of projects that are currently at 60% design. The ones in green are the specific projects we'll be providing updates on this evening, and the purple corridors on the map will be discussed on May 12th at our next community meeting. So beyond these brief updates today, going back to that last slide, beyond these brief updates today, there will also be Q&A as we've already had so far, along with the opportunity to take a deeper dive into these corridors during office hours with the Dottie project team, And then there's also availability to provide comments via the Conveo online mapping tool, which I'll share details on how to access later. So these are all projects that will be completed in 2023 and 2024 after we get through these steps of outreach. Next slide. So just one note, also as part of the public feedback process for the bikeway corridors, we also gathered community feedback on areas that are seen as unsafe intersections or corridors for those who are walking and rolling through the South Central CTN neighborhoods. And this map actually shows locations where multimodal improvements have been prioritized by community members. The improvements, they sort of range from lower cost fixes to address minor issues to more comprehensive studies that will help prioritize safety improvements through future funding in upcoming years. And then beyond these projects, there's also more focused multimodal network happening in the Capitol Hill area, which is the Neighborhood Transportation Management Program, or NTMP, which is going to be discussed a little bit more later today. So now, next slide.
Thank you. So we will open it again for questions. Any questions related to the South Central Community Transportation Network, as was just overviewed there by Walter. We will start with one inquiry that came in asking, when is the bike facility on Broadway going to be installed, specifically around the 6-8 Spear intersections? This person notes that they can't cross Spear, which would be helpful to get to their local grocery store and other destinations.
Yeah, it's my understanding that this project's currently out for bid, which means that it's prioritized for construction within the next coming year or two, I believe, but I can follow up and get specifics on that. I would refer to the Denver Moves Broadway website for more updates on that, and we can pull the website in there for the chat. I'm not on that exact project team, so I'm sorry I don't have additional details, but we can find out more for you.
Thank you. Sorry, this darn mute button. Next question comes from Lynn, and Lynn, thank you for your question. Lynn asks, is there a mileage goal for the next round of bikeways after 2023 and the 125 miles that are planned?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the 125 miles by 2023 was a goal that was put in place from the mayor's office. So I think if either the current mayor or the next mayor decides to do a similar initiative, I know that there's quite a number of additional facilities to be installed, and both through the CTN process and the paving process. So however many miles and over however many years, I would say that there's definitely projects that are available to be installed. So whatever that number ends up being, we're looking forward to meeting it and exceeding it.
Thank you. Could you address, when will the Broadway bike lane be completed to Cherry Creek and then on to downtown?
I think that's similar to the question earlier. I can I'll double check on that one. And that's just part of the Denver Moves Broadway, which again, I need to double check and make sure what year that's going to be completed. So again, sorry, I don't have more information on that.
Sure, thank you. And then just a quick note to the project team, if you do have any questions that you see in the Q&A box that you feel comfortable typing an answer to, you'd be welcome to do that. The next question, perhaps Josh or Drew could answer for us. Has the Galapagos Street project been corrected to connect to 2nd Avenue instead of 3rd Avenue after the east-west connection was moved from 3rd to 2nd, or is there some other solution to this problem?
I can jump in. That has been, we'll give a little update on that today, but that project is being connected from Galapago to 2nd and all the way over to Clarkson and Spear. So that has been picked up with the change in the east-west connection.
Thank you. Last question in this round before we move on, perhaps David could take it for us. And thank you to Mike in the audience for answering, or I'm sorry, for asking. Will there be a future emphasis on connections between bike lanes already built for some quick wins, much of the network right now have endpoints in very dangerous locations and often makes the high comfort lanes feel not very useful.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say, network connectivity is definitely something that goes into our factors for looking at new bike facilities. And one thing that we're trying to create is just a redundancy in the network. And just like cars, when a street is closed or a bridge is closed, have a variety of options to travel on, we want bicyclists to have the same thing. So, it's important for them the networks to not only be connected, but that for there to be like redundancy in the network. So meaning that you don't have to go very far before you can travel on another facility that's designed for your comfort and safety on a bicycle. So, yep, absolutely. Want there to be connectivity, and we'll, we try to, not leave there be like dead ends and hanging on orphans out there. We want to connect everything.
Good, and you bring up a good point. A lot of the questions that are coming through, I'm excited to share. We'll be getting some more updates on that in some of the upcoming slides. So we'll go ahead and move forward now. And we will talk about some of the localized updates and specific projects that are going on. And we'll have Josh take the lead on that, please.
Great, thanks. And I think Walter may have mentioned this early on, but these are some of the projects that people wanted to hear most about as far as updates that are happening right now in the network. This is North Sherman. This is an alternate to Grant Street that was in Denver Moves. This project connects from Colfax all the way up to Benedict Fountain Park. And the major update here is this is going to be a curb separated bike lane like shown in the image in the middle of this slide. And it's going to really allow folks to connect north-south through this section of Denver, which currently really doesn't have any good north-south connectivity. The other thing to highlight here is going to be part of the 5280 trail. So actually, Brett on the call is working on that right now on 21st Street. So this will provide a really nice connection from the state capitol up to Benedict Fountain Park and then up to the Tremont Neighborhood Bikeway and then 21st Avenue. So this is going to be a really nice connection that runs parallel to Broadway. Next slide, please. And another really needed connection in the Capitol Hill area is the North Emerson and Pearl Neighborhood Bikeway. And this is really kind of a alternative to Clarkson and Emerson in this area here. And so this one is a pretty long bikeway. It goes all the way from 3rd Avenue down up to East 20th Avenue. So this is a neighborhood bikeway connecting kind of Country Club, Alamo Placita neighborhood all the way up to 3rd Avenue. So it's going to be all the way up to 20th Avenue. So it has a pretty long range and it takes advantage of some existing bikeways on 11th. And the other thing is this is really kind of a mix of neighborhood traffic circles, curb extensions, and some other traffic control devices to really reduce speeds along these two streets. The other thing I wanted to point out too is this specific corridor is really making improvements on 6th and 8th to allow those crossings. Those are pretty big barriers for bicycles to get across. There'll be some traffic control devices like RRBs and curb extensions to shorten the crossings on those major arterials. And you'll have kind of a rectangular rapid flashing beacon, which is an actuated beacon that tells cars to yield to people walking and biking across those busier streets. And that'll also happen on 17th and 18th as well. Next slide.
All right, so the next project we'll talk about is the West 5th Avenue, North Delaware Street project. This one is a proposed bike facility that consists of a combination of a neighborhood bikeway, a bike lane, and some enhanced intersection improvements. This project is just near Sunken Gardens, so just on the southwest side of Spear, not too far from the Sherman project that Josh referenced a moment ago. This project provides a connection from the existing bike lane that's on North Bannock Street and connects up to Sunken Gardens Park, which will ultimately provide a connection into downtown. Along the way, this project will provide connectivity to Denver Health, some parks, schools, and other bike facilities. Additionally, it is part of the 5280 loop as well. The improvements on this project will really help to address some community concerns that we heard throughout the process. These were primarily related to bike and ped safety and route simplicity. The key benefits of the project related to the bike and ped safety are some of the enhanced crossings at the barrier intersections like 6th Avenue and 8th Avenue. During the previous concept phase of the project, the crossing at 8th Avenue was identified to be a pedestrian hybrid beacon, but notably since that time, that signal is now going to be, or that intersection is now going to be upgraded to a full traffic signal. So that's something that the city is really excited to let everybody know. Additionally, this project will now include a paved improvement through the Sunken Gardens Park. Currently, it's a crusher fine type surface that has some ponding issues during rain events, and that will now be paved in coordination with Denver Parks. Josh.
Thanks, Matt. And this is the East 3rd Avenue bike lane and neighborhood bikeway combination. So this really goes from North Clarkson Street all the way to Gilpin Street on the east. Some of the kind of notable features are it really connects across Spear Boulevard. So one of the major barriers for bicycling in the city is Spear. This allows, it's a two-way protected bicycle facility, kind of like what you see on the left image on the bottom here. So kind of bi-directional travel across Spear, and it will have bicycle signals that will allow separate crossing for bicycles only. So they'll be moving while traffic is stopped. And then on the east end from Downing to Gilpin, one of the major changes is that we'll be installing a bike lane, a dedicated bike lane. So it's kind of a more conventional bike lane from Downing to Gilpin based on some community input we received. This street in general is a low traffic, low speed street. And so appropriate facilities that are gonna provide a nice alternative connection to the Cherry Creek Trail that runs on Spear and East 1st Avenue. So really kind of providing a nice calm connection through the neighborhood. Next slide.
So this next corridor that we want to talk about is the 2nd Avenue and North Clarkson Street neighborhood bikeway and protected bike lane. And this is continuing west from the corridor that Josh just described. So crossing over Spear and making connections to the Cherry Creek Trail, and then briefly continuing as that two-way protected bike lane that Josh was talking about all the way to Washington Street. And then at Washington Street, continuing on as a neighborhood bikeway. And so the goal with the neighborhood bikeway section is really to include traffic circles, curb extensions, and crossing enhancements at large high volume streets like Broadway and Logan Street. And the idea is to reduce cut through traffic as much as possible on this street and also keep traffic speeds as low as possible to make it a nice, comfortable neighborhood bikeway street. Next slide.
All right, so I just wanted to provide a quick plug here for another way that you can provide your feedback on these corridors that we just talked about. So you can take a deeper dive into the design of each corridor that you just saw and share your feedback through our online mapping tool, which is called Conveo. So you'll access the Conveo mapping tool using the link that's shown here on the screen, which is bit.ly/SCCTN Conveo. And I'll also just ask if someone on the project team can just throw that into the chat so someone can click on it, and then we'll also send it out during the meeting as well, or after the meeting as well. But on this website, these are some screenshots from the website on the right here. As you'll see South Central CTN, and then each of these corridors, you have the ability to click on the 60% design, which is actually like a concept map for each of these bikeway designs where you can leave feedback. Anything from general thoughts about the corridor as a whole, or targeted feedback on specific intersections or design elements, those sorts of things. All of this feedback will be extremely helpful as we further tailor these designs moving forward. So the comment period here starts today. So the link is currently live. And then we'll go for 3 weeks through May 24th. So I just wanted to put a quick plug in for that. Thanks.
Thank you all for those updates. We have a little bit of time for some questions this round. Walter, perhaps you could answer this question from Caitlin. Caitlin, thank you for your question. Caitlin asks, how do the different projects get prioritized? The projects you shared in phase 1 and 2 seem like a patchwork where someone might have to zigzag to get through to Cap Hill.
Sure, yeah, thanks for that question. So the prioritization for these projects originally started with Denver Moves Bikes back in 2011, and then that was updated in 2016. And then as we started the CTN process in late 2019 and early 2020, there's actually a network validation part of the process that was completed right at the beginning of this, where we went back and looked at what was proposed in Denver Moves Bikes to see if it made sense and made the connections that are necessary and desired. And then from there, after that validation, really went out to the community to get their feedback on the current network proposals as well. So I'm not sure if I'd be happy to answer any follow-ups if there's a specific route or portion of Cap Hill that you're specifically concerned with. But beyond that, I know that as part of the network, we'll have connectivity north-south on North Sherman, and then also Emerson Pearl, which Josh mentioned, and then east-west on 7th, 11th, a good portion of 12th, and then up to the protected bike lane on 13th as well. But if there's any other specific areas you're interested in, happy to look in the chat for a follow-up there.
Thank you. Next question comes from Garrett. For the jaunt from Emerson and Pearl on what looks like 12th, will there be a bike lane the whole way, or will it be intermixed with cars during that separation? Josh, maybe you could answer that one for us.
Sure. Actually, the jog from Emerson to Pearl is on 11th, and that will be a dedicated bike lane that's existing there. And there will be some new meeting islands that will be installed as well to help pedestrians crossing both Emerson and Pearl.
Thank you. Might go ahead and move forward here to make sure we've got time for our neighborhood transportation management program slides. This time we'll pass it to Brett and Ashley to cover that for us.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Again, my name is Brett Boncory. I manage the neighborhood transportation management program, and then I also help with a lot of our bike and transit designs here at Dottie. And wanted to give you a brief overview of the neighborhood transportation management program, and specifically in Civic Center and Capitol Hill, as a lot of the recommendations that we're actually advancing came out of the feedback that this team, the CTN team, heard last year during our multimodal improvements feedback. So first of all, for those who are unfamiliar with the NTMP program, it's around to be more proactive about issues. As folks know, we have a 311 system, our air engineer system, tends to be more reactive for sure. But this is trying to be more proactive, going to the community to gain that input and come up with solutions. We also want to advance socioeconomic equity for everything we do as a top priority of our city, and to take kind of a holistic approach to addressing traffic calming needs instead of doing it on a case-by-case basis at one specific location, kind of looking at the whole neighborhood as a whole. And then also, of course, wanting to connect with the community while we gather that input. Next slide. So how do we select these neighborhoods? So the NTMP program has actually scored all of the neighborhoods in Denver according to these 4 transportation and mobility focused criteria. The first is growth pressure, how much development is going on, how much change is happening in these areas, and how can we support the existing and new neighborhood that is there. Multimodal demand is the second criteria here, basically looking at how many people are walking, biking, and taking transit, and pairing that with how many gaps there are in those networks. And then the last 2 our higher emphasis ones. The transportation equity score is actually coming from the city's equity index, which includes, among other things, low-income populations, high minority populations, transit-dependent populations, and where those are highest. And then lastly, safety, multimodal safety. And this is one of the big reasons why Civic Center and Capitol Hill popped up, basically looking at crashes in the area, injuries, fatalities, and property damage crashes. Next slide. So this is kind of how that all shook out in that scoring system. As you can see, the neighborhoods in blue are the neighborhoods where we have already done an NTMP action plan. We're proud to say we just completed the Westwood and Athmar Park action plan. And you can see that Capitol Hill and Civic Center, or Golden Triangle, are really two of the highest ranked and our next ones, which is why we're here today. You can go to the next slide. So as far as what will come out of these neighborhood transportation management programs, first of all, we have a focus on implementation. So as you'll see, a lot of these things aren't your massive, huge projects per se. They're your more neighborhood scale projects, but they're things that we can get done quickly, and we know we can get them done quickly. And so hopefully you'll see that in what we have here today. And it is driven by community priorities. Again, these are neighborhood scale projects. And again, we actually, and the reason we're presenting with the CTN team here today is actually what we're really doing is putting the NTMP resources behind a lot of the feedback that was already heard as part of the CTM process last year. So we said, instead of going back to a whole nother public outreach process, let's use what the community has already told us, verify it now, which is what we're doing with you now. And you'll see how we're doing that in a second, and move the projects forward that make the most sense for the folks in these two neighborhoods that we're focusing on today. So what that's going to look like is 3 different types of categories of projects that you'll see that comes out of these action plans. The first is what we call an operational and safety project. These are our short-term projects that we do in-house. They're typically done within 6 months to 8 months after we do our action plan. And those are kind of our smaller stuff that we signing and striping projects that we can do in-house. The second category are what we call our NTMP projects. These are projects that are a little more complex in nature, and we need to hire designers to do the design team to do them and a contractor to install them. And this is what we use the NTMP funds for. This is actually really what we're seeking the public's input on right now, which we'll get to. And then the third category is future projects. And those are projects that are beyond our program scope, budget, and resources. But we still want to take the time to gather these projects and prioritize them for future city funding. Next slide. And Ashley, who's been the project manager on this project, is going to take it from this slide.
Yeah, thank you, Brett, and good evening, everybody. So as Brett mentioned, there's already been a lot of planning work that has occurred in this area. So we were able to kind of accelerate the initial piece of this project with all the feedback we've collected from you, and we're gonna show you what we came up with there. But another piece of the puzzle that we've also been taking into account as we move forward the NTMP process in this area is that there's a lot of development, particularly in the Golden Triangle area, that is going on. And so we try to take that into account as well, knowing that oftentimes these very large developments, when they come in, they are required to bring the right-of-way up to our current standards and guidelines. And so you could see, again, there's a lot going on in the Golden Triangle, which is partially why there aren't as many improvements you'll see that we as a city will likely be moving forward in the near future, but things that we will be working with our development partners to make sure those are addressed, the safety concerns, et cetera. This map is actually not something Dottie created. It's from actually your Councilmember Hines' website. You can see it on the top right there in the event that you'd like to take a quick look. So the next couple things I'm going to show you are kind of where we're at in the NTMP process, and why we're here today is to share these with you so that we can start to collect your feedback on kind of A, did we miss anything big? And B, we'd love your thoughts on how we can prioritize those NTMP projects. So the next map on the next slide outlines our operational and safety improvements. So as Brett described, we have those 3 levels of improvements that come out of the NTMP process. This is kind of that real quick turnaround, low tier outcome of this program. So these are things that can be done by our own staff engineers writing what we call work orders that then can go be installed by our own crews. So they're a pretty quick turnaround on these. And you can see that there are a number of looking at, can we put in what's called an LPI, a leading pedestrian interval? That's a tool that we use at big intersections with pedestrians, especially where there's a safety concern, that gives pedestrians just a little bit more lead time to get out into the intersection before vehicles are given the opportunity to move through the intersection. And that makes sure that they're a little bit more visible and have been proven to be extremely helpful in increasing safety. We're looking at a couple other things like making sure at key intersections, bicycles are accounted for in that timing at those signals. We're looking at some signage improvements. We're looking at, you'll see there's 2 colors of those little pedestrians crossing. Blue means we've collected data and we know we are ready to install some pedestrian crossing enhancements. Purple means we think there's a need there, but we need to collect additional data before we can confirm, because we still need to meet our standards and guidelines before we would move those forward. And then those big purple lines, those are just looking at how can we utilize the existing signal infrastructure on those corridors to achieve the safety and speeds that we think are appropriate. So this is going to be, Brett's going to walk you through quickly a survey we've created. There is a link to this map so you can take a little bit deeper dive into this, and then there'll be a space on the survey for you to let us know if we missed anything big. But the real exciting part is the next map, and I'm only going to speak to it quickly because Brett is actually going to walk you through this in more detail, but these are the NTMP projects that we have identified. These are the things that are going to require a little bit more design, and then we will go forward with installation because we're thinking about geometric improvements, other kind of larger scale type improvements that take just a little bit more depth and analysis. And so we have an opportunity for you all that will open up, actually I'll get to that in a moment, but basically from today through the end of the month, through June 3rd, for you guys to visit us on Social Pinpoint and provide some feedback on what you think of these NTMP level projects. So again, Brett's going to go through that in just a moment. But before I hand it off to him, I want to go to the next slide, which is to just reiterate some of that time frame or timeline that Brett and I have discussed a little bit, which is that we really kicked this off last year, this in-house analysis of what are all of the multimodal needs in this area. Again, we accelerated this because in addition to the multimodal concerns we heard from you all via this process, we also know that the East Neighborhood Planning Initiative just moved through the area, East Central, and captured a lot of your ideas. So we did a lot of inventorying of all of the data that's been collected over the last couple of years, recognizing you all have devoted a lot of time to telling us what you need, and you probably don't want to do that yet again. So let's take all of that, let's collect some data, provide that analysis, and actually generate some projects. And so now where we're at today is we've created those projects, identified those needs in those projects, and are coming to you to verify that we captured them correctly and to help us prioritize that. So again, there's going to be a survey we're going to invite you to. And then once that's done, we're going to wrap it all up into a nice little action plan that'll inform our near-term operational and safety projects that are going to go out the door later this year. And then we'll inform those that we're going to move into design and start to build in the 2023-2024 timeline. And then finally, we'll also have those future projects that will inform our CIP, our capital improvement program, as well as the things we want to capture in major efforts like Denver Moves Everyone. Next slide, please. So our ask of you is to give us your feedback. What do you think of all these multimodal improvements we've identified in these areas? And with that, I'm going to turn it back to you, Brett, just to share your screen quickly with
Sure,
everybody.
yeah. So like Ashley mentioned, we now have, today marks the opening. We will actually probably, if you give us till tomorrow morning, we will have this survey open, which will run all the way through June 3rd. And what we wanted to do, and basically you can access this survey through our NTMP website or through this bit.ly that's right here. It's bit.ly/CCCH. That's Civic Center Cap Hill. It's short for Civic Center Cap Hill -NTMP. And also the link has been posted in the chat. Thank you, Kaylee, for doing that. And again, you can also access this by just go ahead, just Googling it, basically Cap Hill Civic Center NTMP project. But right now, what we're going to do is just to kind of give you a little bit of a tour around how to use this tool. It's a tool we call Social Pinpoint. And when you open it up, this is kind of what you'll see. You'll see a little intro screen. You just have to get started now. And what you'll see on here, starting with the survey on the left, is first of all, and the highest priority for us is to get your input on these NTMP projects. Basically, we have 14 projects listed here, and we don't have money to do all of them. It's just the way it is. And so we really need to understand what the community's priorities are. And so the idea here is you can kind of, these projects right here do align with the projects here on the map to the right. And we wouldn't expect you to know what the 12th Ave Spear Boulevard Elati Street intersection reconfiguration is, which is why you would just go ahead and go through these little icons on the map. You can click on them, and this shows you, okay, number one, 12th Spear Elati intersection reconfiguration. And you can see what we're doing here, enlarging the island separator, installing some curb extensions for decreased pedestrian crossing distances, turning speeds, and providing a clear bike indication or clearer indication for east-west bike connection to Cherry Creek. You can click on that picture. You can kind of see a conceptualization, high-level conceptualization of what we're proposing there, as you can see here, and kind of just tour through some other projects here. Here's one project. So one thing I wanted to highlight here, someone mentioned the gaps in our bikeway network. That's one thing actually that the NTMP is really good at, actually, is going in and going on a neighborhood level and seeing, okay, we had our bikeway program come through. There's going to be some gaps here and there, particularly at intersections. And that's what this project, for example, is proposing amongst two other bikeway projects. This is talking about the Bannock Street bikeway enhancements. If anyone's traveled along Bannock Street through Civic Center, you would know, oh, you're going along a striped bike lane, but then right when you get to the intersection, that bike lane kind of just drops. So this project, for example, would be extending the bike lane all the way through the intersection. You know, there will be minor parking removal to make that happen, but it is a priority of ours along these corridors. You can also go down into Street View to look at what that Street View currently looks like. And then the last, let's see, you'll see we talk a lot about curb extensions through here and pedestrian improvements. That's basically, using the no parking area and really reinforcing that no parking area with actual striping and vertical elements to make sure people can't park in that area and to ensure that sight lines are clear. This also decreases vehicle turning speeds at the intersections and decreases pedestrian crossing distances. And that's probably the big kind of highlights that we'll go through. But again, you can tour through those projects, and then once you've kind of figured out which ones you would like, you can just quickly either drag them here up to the ones, or you can just simply press plus, and you can see how I'm adding a couple. You don't have to add all, you can maybe just even add 4 and then go on to the next. If we didn't capture what you see as the largest needs here, you can also comment here on the NTMP projects, and you can comment on the projects themselves. If there's something about that design that you feel should change or whatnot, you can also comment on that. now kind of going to we do also, excuse me, Ashley presented the operational and safety map earlier. Those are our smaller kind of work order signing and striping projects. You can, once the survey is open, you'll be able to click this link here. It'll basically go to that map that Ashley showed, along with some additional detail about what those projects are. And we also provide a location for you to comment on those operational and safety projects as well, if there's anything that we've missed there. And then we have some questions, some demographic questions that are optional that just help us to know if we're getting a wide grasp of the community through these surveys. So again, that will be open through June 3rd. Please take that, please share it, share the link with friends and family and your organizations that you're involved with. We really need your help with prioritizing these projects. And I believe, Ashley, let me know if I missed anything, but I believe that is it.
Yep, I think we're ready to turn it back to the CTN team so they can wrap things up, but I think you covered it all. Thank you, Brett.
Yes, thank you both, Brett and Ashley. That was a very thorough presentation. And thank you again to our audience for the really thoughtful questions that have come in. They've been excellent. We are trying to get as many of them as we can in today's session, either verbally or by typing our responses. And so please feel free to keep them coming. A couple of quick questions to follow up to the NTMP presentation. Brett, maybe you could answer this for us. What is the timeline for full reopening of Civic Center Park? It might be more of a Denver Parks question, but Civic Center acts as a throughway for a lot of people in the South Central network, and having it closed creates an issue for a lot of people. Any thoughts on that?
So yeah, unless Ashley has a thought here, I think that would be a Parks and Rec question we might need to get back to you on. Ashley, do you know anything specifically about the timeline of that reopening by chance?
Do not. Yeah, I think that's
we might need to get back.
Ongoing discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, we can provide that in the Q&A.
Thank you. And there is a comment here that maybe someone could just provide a response to. The comment says that the NTMP analysis was completed within a neighborhood, but many of people's issues are experienced between neighborhoods. The Broadway, Lincoln, Spear, 6th, 8th intersection are, they say, impossible to cross on a bike. Any response to that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, great question. So, for some of these connections are being handled through other projects, like we just mentioned, the Broadway multimodal project will cross Spear and help for bikes and pedestrians to cross Spear a little more safely. Some of the CTN projects that were presented, particularly the 5th and Delaware project that's going to connect into Bannock, will help bikes connect via that way. We do have a couple other NTMPs, like I mentioned earlier, namely the Baker NTMP and the Walma Lincoln Park NTMP that did also address some of these connections across Spear. But at the same time, please let us know in the comments on that survey of the specific issues that you see within and between those neighborhoods, so we can make sure that those are addressed either with ours or with a previous action plan that might just not be built just yet.
Thank you. And we'll move on to sort of our final couple of questions here. We'll go ahead and go with this one from Lauren. Lauren, thank you for your question. With the bicycle improvements ending at or near Benedict Fountain Park, will the section of 20th Avenue across from the park see improvements? If so, how will those improvements interact with the expanded patios for the restaurants there? Walter, maybe you could answer that one for us.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Lauren. Currently, there are not planned improvements to the bikeway along 20th, but there is a neighborhood bikeway extension as part of the Central Community Transportation Network that will go along Tremont and Glenarm up sort of diagonally up to North Washington. So there's an improvement there, but just in general, in terms of other areas where there's proposed bikeways with expanded patio space where there's that overlap, What we'll do is we'll work with the team that coordinates and permits right-of-way usage for restaurants and find a best way for those uses to interact with each other. And if anyone else has additional information on that, feel free to jump in.
Thank you. We'll address one final question, and this one comes from Ian. Ian, thank you for your questions. Is it still a goal to place a protected bike lane on Washington Clarkson through Cap Hill? Ian notes that, as others have said, the proposed neighborhood bikeway route is zigzaggy and inconvenient. Meanwhile, cars get a straight, convenient route and street parking on both sides of the street. Ashley, maybe you could answer that for us. Is it still a goal to place protected bike lane on Washington Clarkson through Cap Hill?
That has not changed. It is simply not something that is going to stay in this round of the CTN. We had a lot of discussions about what our resources and our capacities are at the moment. And given all that we're trying to accomplish, unfortunately, we can't put the whole network in tomorrow. It's an iterative and long process. And so the Washington Clarkson corridor is still a high priority for us at the city, and it's just going to take a lot more resources than I think we originally anticipated as we started to dig into that specific route. There's just a lot of different challenges associated with it, et cetera. So it's definitely not off the table. It's just going to take a little while longer for us to get there.
Thank you. And thanks again for all of these great questions. As you can see, we're right after 6:30 here, so we'll go ahead and move forward with our final thoughts, next steps, and feedback.
Thank you, Sarah. We hope tonight's presentation was a helpful way to interact with the project team and to get your answers to your questions. Thank you all so much for staying so engaged, and thank you to the project team for providing those answers. I hope that all of the community members feel confident about how to use the survey mapping tool that was launched today for both the CTN and NTMP projects. You can use that tool to provide your feedback and ask additional questions. We encourage you to share what you've learned with your neighbors and your friends. So please use that community map to leave your comments. As a quick reminder, you can go to the project website if you want a refresher on how to access and utilize those tools. And that project website is bit.ly, so bit.ly-Denver Moves Networks, to watch a video tutorial that guides you through that process. We would love your help in sharing what you've learned tonight with your neighbors and friends. All of this program information that we shared with you this evening is on that website that I just shared with you. And on the next slide, if you have any questions, you can always sign up to meet up with one of us, one of the project team members, by visiting the project website, providing your feedback on the Conveo survey mapping tool, requesting office hours, calling us, or sending us an email. I think on the next slide, we have that information. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. We know we're a little over time, but we so appreciate your engagement in this process, and we look forward to the next time that we meet. Until then, have a great night and stay safe.